Hello and welcome to the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and global community Facebook page. I'm Ginny Robertson, one of the hosts of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, and I'm also the founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine and founder of the On Purpose Woman global community. My guest today is Dr. Yvonne Kaye, thanatologist, addictionist, therapist, interfaith minister, radio show host for 18 years, and a living legend. And we'll be talking about how the hell did I get there from here with a big old question mark at the end. So welcome, Dr. Kaye. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be with you.
As I said before we got on live, that we could probably talk for hours, but we're going to hit some of the really important points. And I would love to have you back at another time. But before we get into this, what I think will be a very juicy conversation, I want to introduce you to our viewers. Mother, grandmother, storyteller, writer, published author, thanatologist, humorist, and former Philadelphia radio show personality, Dr. Yvonne Kaye has been involved with people since 1951 in her native England. A survivor of the Second World War, she uses her experiences in working with people in emotional pain, grief, and loss, believing in the spiritual power of humor as a healing tool. Dr. Kaye has been in the field of human services for many years, encountering extraordinary people whose courage has amazed her. Her passion is offering enrichment in life, mentally and emotionally, to those who have no concept of their own creativity. She is also a keynote speaker and has written 3 books, The Child That Never Was, Grieving Your Past to Grow Into the Future. I love that title, by the way. Actually, they're all great titles. Credit, Cash, and Codependency, How the Way You Were Raised Affects Your Decisions About Money, and 366 Encouragements for Prosperity. And that's a book of daily affirmations. I've barely touched the surface with all that you've accomplished, and you are still sharing your gifts with the world in such bold and beautiful ways. So thank you for just doing such important work for so many years.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
And I want to add to our listeners that when I turned 70 in October, I decided to start a feature in On Purpose Woman magazine called Sage Women, Wisdom from 70 plus years on the planet. And I did it primarily because I felt that women of a certain age, and I picked 70 because that's the year actually I thought I might start to feel like I was aging. That didn't happen, but it's not 60. It's not 60, it's 70. It's different. And I feel like that's also a segment of the population that can be pushed aside, that people will try to make to feel invisible. And my goal in life with everything that I do is to shine a spotlight on women and help them to be seen and heard in greater ways. And I want to do that with women 70 plus. And so thank you for being one of our Sage Women in the March-April issue.
Thank you.
You know, our mutual friend, Edie Weinstein, contacted me and she said, I think my friend would be great for that. And I agreed. And when she told me about you, I said, well, I want you to write a story about her for the magazine. So please, everyone watching, go catch that story and you'll find out even more information about our guest today. You can go to OPWGC, which stands for On Purpose Woman Global Community.com, and you'll see the magazine there. And also that led to this interview today. So it was a nice little stair step of getting to know more about you and ending up here and getting to actually see you and hear your voice. So we're talking about how the hell did I get here from there? So let's start with that and see where it takes us. How the hell did you get here from there?
Well, it's fascinating, really, because I had a radio show, as you said, for 18 years. It was called the Dr. Yvonne Kaye Show. How original can you be? So when they wanted to do this one, the podcast, they said, is that what you want to call it? And I said, hell no. It's like, my story is, if I could do it, anybody can do it. So that's why I called it that. And it really started in the war, actually, even though I dislike war intensely, but I will defend the warriors no matter what. And in fact, I work with veterans, also with PTSD and night terrors and so on. But in that war, I learned so many lessons. I was 6 years, just before my 6th birthday, before it broke out in London. And they called it the phony war to start with because not much happened. And then 1940, it hit. And we were bombed day and night. I was bombed out twice, so I know what homeless and hungry means. And this is the biggest lesson I learned. The people who had little more than we do took us in and fed us. Remember, 8 years old, I looked at those people and I said to myself, I want to be like that when I grow up. Mm. And I am. It's been up and down, you know, but this is the big thing. I've learned through everything I've been through a lesson. It's all a lesson. And everything that happened during that war trained me to listen to people in emotional pain with grief, anxiety, because I went there. I was there. I know what that's like. And today, even, you know, I'm with them in the Ukraine because I know what that's like, even though they have it worse than we did. So that's how I got there. And my guests, and I hope one of these days you'll be one of them in my podcast, they have to have that title in mind. Now, you just listened to John Pavlovich, and he had that in mind to say, how did I get here from there? Because that's the story, I think, that encourages people so much.
It's so interesting. For years, I've had this idea of a book in my head called From There to Here, just where I would talk with women who, nothing as big as what you probably talk about, but with women who had made extreme changes. You know, like I know women who were anthropologists, and now they support entrepreneurs with being seen out there in the world. And, you know, women who were, I have a friend who worked on the Hubble Space Telescope, and she's now a mystic. And you know, she talks to dead people, as she'll tell you. And it's like, how did they do that? How did they make that shift and that change? So the title appeals to me already. But I think when you add the how the hell did I do it, it even gives it more flavor. And I love that you go back to a small child, because that could have, and I'm not saying that it hasn't scarred you, but that could have just stopped you. That whole experience could have had you suffering deeply for the rest of your life, where you couldn't have helped anybody else. Well, who helped you get to that place as well?
Well, my family, I believe, my family of origin created the word dysfunctional. I think they created it. And I was told by the man who I thought was my father when I was 21 that he wasn't.
Oh, dear.
So I'm half English. Oh, what a relief. Such a relief. I'm half English, half Irish. I never got to know my real father, which has always been very sad for me, because I would love to. My husband and I would go to Ireland every year to try and find him, and we never did. But the thing is that when you're caught up in that almost impossible situation to imagine or even describe, like being bombed day and night, you either sit down and suck your thumb, or you develop a watch me personality. And a friend of mine just recently gave me this. I don't know if you can read it, but it says, they told me I couldn't, so I did. And that's what has made me develop into whatever I am. I'm very, very definite describing that my life isn't like that. My life is like that. So some days I have days. And it's important for people to know that when we've achieved a lot, it doesn't mean that we don't have triggers. And I think that's what you were referring to before, that I have triggers, a lot of triggers.
And especially now, I'm sure that they're worse.
Unbelievable. And you know, it's interesting because I have a few friends all over the world who went through what I went through in London. And we all would like to be there. We'd all like to be in the Ukraine. I mean, we couldn't be because we just get in the way. But that's the feeling. And those of us who were arbitrarily just removed, evacuated, and then go back in the worst part of the Blitz, we know what that's like. When I see those children, it rips my heart out. It really, really does. And I have a name for him. The Russian Hitler, I call him.
Ooh. Well, you could very aptly name him that. You have enough experience to say that. And I'm sure you know that you could be of some use there right now too, because you've been through this, but yet, like you say, they're not really, that's not what they need right now. They just need to survive right now, don't they?
Absolutely. Their courage is just astonishing. And I
It
saw a
is.
lot of that kind of courage during the war. 14 members of my family went straight into combat. So
Wow.
I come from a wartime military family. And then my husband, John, as I said, was 17. And so many men and women lied about their age at that time and went into combat. He was 17, straight into combat. And it's just fascinating how they hide that. I don't know if you've come across this at all, if you've been involved with any military people, but I used to say to him, what was it like? I mean, it's bad enough where we were. What was it like being almost a boy in combat? And he would say, oh, it was great fun. Great fun?
Yeah.
He would never, ever talk about it. And my family helped people escape from concentration camps. And I had a foster brother called George. He was 15, a sweet and gentle man, would never talk about what happened in that camp.
Wow.
Never. So I learned a lot as a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And,
a lot to be proud of there as well.
Yeah.
My uncle lied about his age after Pearl Harbor and enlisted.
Oh.
And he was a prisoner of war for a few years. He was first captured by the Germans and was on a ship. And then the Germans traded their prisoners to the Japanese for fuel. And he said the German commander actually had tears running down his face when they left the ship, because he knew they'd been treated fairly well on the ship, but he knew what the Japanese would do to them. And he escaped. And he would never, yes.
Wonderful.
And I brought that up because he would never talk about it either, except sometimes he would come, they lived out of town. He would come to visit, and he and my mom was a night owl. They would stay up late talking. And if he could if he would have a few drinks, he would then start to lighten up and he would kind of tell the truth. But those men were conditioned. You know, they were supposed to be tough and they weren't supposed to talk about it. And I'm sure you see that with your current work with men and women who are suffering from PTSD, that there's been such a stigma. It's getting better, but how do you, yes, go ahead.
It helps for them to know what happened to me.
Yes, I was just going to ask you that.
It really does help. And my cousin Albert was taken prisoner by the Japanese, so I know what you're talking about. And I don't know if you remember that film that was kind of romanticized, The Bridge Over the River Kwai. He was in Camp 39. Wow. And at the end of the war, he came home. He was 6'2" and he weighed 102 pounds. And for some reason, and I don't know whether it was the war or not, the only person he would talk to was me. I was 12 years old, and I will never forget him. And of course, his whole life was destroyed after that.
How could it not be? But he must have felt you wouldn't judge.
Probably. I think children don't judge.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I know you also believe in the power of choice. And I know who one of your heroes is. And so I'd love to talk about how has knowing that you have choices supported you from getting there to here?
I didn't always know that. I mean, on some kind of subconscious level, it's to do with survival. When I was a little girl, it's to do with survival. But when I came to this country under duress, because I used to be a raging codependent, I was married to a narcissist for 25 years. So
oh dear.
He said, we're going, and we came. I was dangerously homesick. I'm sure you can understand. It was my 4 children that prevented me doing anything very bad. And a woman came over one day whose daughter was a friend of my older daughter at school. She was 10. And she said, I have a book for you to read. And I looked at the book and I said, not reading it. Came back the next week and I said, Came back the 3rd week and said, I'm not leaving until you read the book. And that little tiny book was called Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. And the more I read this little book, which I think sold millions and millions and millions of copies, the more I read it, the more I realized it was all about choice.
Mm.
And he wrote it. He was originally in Buchenwald, and then he was in Auschwitz, where he wrote the book. And the United States had granted him a visa, but not his wife or his mother, father, brother. So
Wow.
he refused. He refused to come. He ended up, and they all perished in the camps, all of them. And so I started reading this book. And one of the stories that really sits with me, and I talk about this when I work with a recovering community, I give this story all the time when we talk about choice. And that was the day that he was laying railroad tracks in Auschwitz, and it was bitterly cold. He had holes in his gloves, holes in his shoes. And you know, when it's bitterly cold, your skin will stick to iron or steel. And he's laying these tracks, and all of a sudden, this little bird flew down, landed on the track, right up into his eyes with her big brown eyes. And he chose to believe that was the soul and the spirit of his wife. He could have said it's just a bird, but he didn't. And for me, that is the best way. Do we always make good choices? No, but we can remedy most of them. But that really, really hit me. And then the other thing that really hit me, he wrote, they can do anything to my body, but they cannot touch my thoughts. Mm. And I thought how true that is. Yes. And I read about all these people, but he had the biggest impact. And I had that book in 1968, which I showed you. It's falling apart. Whoops. Falling apart. But that's how often I read it. Even today, when I get very passionate about what I think is an injustice, I have to get the book. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to him once.
Say more about that, yeah.
There was a young nurse who said to me, I follow you, and it doesn't matter what you talk about, whatever the lecture is, you always bring Viktor Frankl in, no matter what. It could be humor, it could be breathing, it could be anything. And I said, well, because he lives here in my heart. So she said, well, why don't you go and see him? And I thought, So I lost my voice. My children were thrilled. And so I was sitting up in the bed, and I had 3 years of diaries laid out for me to phone, to speak to whoever makes his appointments. So I could go to Vienna, fly to Vienna, meet him. So I called, and he answered the phone.
That's for you. I bet that just kind of shut you down for a minute, didn't it?
He said, Viktor Frankl. And I went, oh! He said, this is Viktor Frankl. And when I get excited, Ginny, I sound like a chipmunk. So I'm going, oh, Dr. Frankl, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking. Oh my God. And he said, I can't understand English quite that fast. So 15 glorious minutes of my life, I spoke to this man. And he told me stories I don't think, as far as I can remember, are in the book. For example, he went to see his father in what remained of the house that was bombed. And there were 2 pieces of marble on his table. And he said to his father, what's that? And his dad said, well, I was walking through all the synagogues that were bombed, and I found these 2 pieces of marble. And they were from the 10 Commandments. And it said, honor my father and my mother. And at that point, he decided to stay. Wow. Amazing. And then what really, really blew me away, just show you the humility of this incredible man. Right at the end, he said to me, well, what do you do? And I said, well, a lot of different things, but basically my love is I'm a grief therapist or specialist, and I mainly work with parents who've lost their children to death. One specific, the parents of murdered children. And I went on, and he said, stop. So I went on to say, he said, stop. And then he said to me, and you admire me? Well, I get the chills just telling you that now. This man who I just idolize and learn so much. I mean, that little book literally changed my whole attitude to life. And for him to say something like that to me, it was just astounding. And I'll never forget that.
That
And
is
those
so.
15 minutes say.
Were you able to take it in when he said that? Were you able to believe it?
Oh, no.
You know?
It took me a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yes.
he's a very wise man, so he had to be telling the truth, right?
I like to think so, but even now today, it's like, really?
Yeah, I know. Our little self gets in the way there sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but
Wow, that's such an amazing story.
What I think people need to know, Ginny, is, and people groan when I say this, but I truly believe that there's nothing special about me except I've used the gifts I've been given.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And anyway, far too few people use their gifts. So many people know how to be compassionate and caring and open and honest, and they don't use it.
Yeah.
Just sad.
That's probably one of the saddest things of our time, really, is all the wasted opportunities, all the people playing small or not being afraid to be seen, hiding out.
Oh, yes.
All of that, especially women, because we've been conditioned for so much less than what we are, able to accomplish.
And you touched too earlier on this thing called aging.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ageism going on. And I'm not aging, I'm ripening. I
do love that. I love that. I'm going to use that.
Reinventing and all that. And this is the reason. And my son, Daniel, he works in a retirement community. And I go and speak to them sometimes. And I say the reason that people think that I'm young at heart is I don't listen to anybody who tells me what I should and should not do at my age. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. It is
that simple, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. So keep it simple, sweetheart.
Uh-huh. I remember seeing some kind of thing popped up somewhere. It may have been on social media, and it was an article in a magazine about what women over 50 shouldn't wear.
Oh, please.
And it was for real, and it just infuriated me. And I saw a friend of mine did this post, and initially I thought she was copying that magazine, but it was something like what women over 50 shouldn't wear, the outdated blah 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 opinions of other people. So that was a real positive spin on that.
Definitely.
But it is, and usually those are being written by much younger people who are giving the advice. So I think that, this is a whole new thing to champion and I want to be that role model. I told you before we got on that I'm always looking for women who are, steps ahead of me in living their life and doing, sharing their gifts and doing it in brilliant, bold ways. And I want to be that for women behind me, because there is no such thing as being too old for something, I don't think. And that also keeps me wanting to do all the things that will keep me feeling good and youthful. And because I'm so passionate about what I do, I want to do it for as long as I want to do it, as I know you do.
Oh, I do indeed. And actually, I'm a voice for ageism now. At 88, I feel I've qualified. And I've taken on a lot of companies.
Have you?
British Air, I took on American Airlines, and some not communities, some grocery stores, supermarkets. I give you an example. I went into a supermarket. This is 3-4 years ago, and I couldn't find something I was looking for. So there were 2 employees. They were kind of on the ground and putting stuff in shelves, a man and a woman. And I said to them, I'm trying to find thus and such. And she said, there's a list. Can't you read?
Oh.
So I didn't say anything. I went and found it. And on the way back, I saw them again, and I was going to go up and speak with her. And suddenly a young man came up and asked her, could you tell me where blah, blah is? And she said, oh, let me take you.
Oh, wow. So you
So
thought it was just her personality maybe at first, right?
So I wrote to the manager and I did not identify her, but I said, I'd be more than willing to come and teach your staff how to deal with older people. Of course, they didn't take me up on that.
Yeah. Wow. But good
Check
for
me
you.
out, I think. But that, and and I've been going into flying home to London or Ireland, and there's been a gap in first class, and they bring you up, into first class. So they said to me, "You're next." And then this very attractive young man showed up, and he went.
Oh.
So I let him have that too.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that people my age, they won't speak up for themselves. And I think that's really, really sad, because people don't have a right to pull that ageism stuff up. They really don't, because they're going to get there one day.
Well, you've been speaking up for yourself for a great part of your life, haven't you?
I have.
So that's probably, you've been in training for this role for a really long time. So that's probably some of the difference, because, there are women in their 80s, 90s. Many of them have never, advocated for themselves or stood up to anyone. And so to start now would just be unthinkable, probably. Even my age of women, we were still taught to be good girls and to be polite and speak when you're spoken to, and don't raise your voice, don't be loud, all that kind of stuff that we have to undo. I'm still undoing that good girl trap,
Oh. I remember someone saying to me, well, I can't do that because I don't want these people to think, oh, what an old bitch. And I said, look, let them think what they like. I don't care. Whatever. I know if I'm speaking for someone who can't speak for themselves, that's something I want to do and continue to do. I don't care what people think. Only the people I care about. But the people I don't care about, too bad.
That's a great distinction. I think I know now what our next conversation will be about. It will be, we'll do a whole show on just this whole ageism thing.
Oh, yes.
Because I would love to really talk more about that.
It's ripe. It really is.
But let's move into a little bit more about the work that you do with grieving, with bereavement work that you do with parents. I know you do work with veterans.
Yes.
But the work that you do with parents, specifically parents of murdered children, that's a large piece of it.
Yes.
Isn't it a shame that you
preference.
have work in that? I mean, my goodness. How do you even begin to do that? And let me just add real quick that I was listening to your interview with John Pavlovitz, and you were both talking about how so many people don't know how to be with someone who is grieving, and and I have learned so much about that over the last 10 or 20 years. I have not had much loss in my life. I've lived quite a charmed life, I believe. And yet I think I've learned more just from listening to people about what they need.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you say? I want to hear about the work that you do, but then what would you say to people who just don't know how to handle being with someone who is grieving for whatever reason?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that, because I'm currently writing a little book. I've been involved with the Compassionate Friends.
Oh, I know that group. Yeah.
Since 1982. As a volunteer, they don't trust a lot of professionals, so I'm very, very honored about that, and I've learned so much from them. And this little book is going to be called "What Not to Say."
Great.
And all the people from the Compassionate Friends are sending me things in about what was said to them when their child died, in whatever way they died. Especially young people who have been told, oh, you're young, you'll get pregnant again. Like that one didn't matter. And these children can be from miscarriage right through to 50, 60 years old. It's still your child. And that's a grief that people never totally recover from. If you want to see me really, really angry, be with me when there's been a school shooting. And the politician gets up and says, the healing has begun. And I thought, you idiot. Even if they come out of numbness within the next 3 to 4 years, it would never go away. It's the wrong order of nature. You're not supposed to bury your child. And when it's a murder thing, let me what I would recommend, if you want to listen to another podcast of mine, listen to the one of Wendy Lavin. Wendy is also a Brit, and her only child was murdered.
Mm.
And I do a annual vigil for victim services, which is, you know, to acknowledge the people who've gone through this that year. And of course, she heard my voice, so she clicked immediately because she's also a Brit. And she tells me her story on that, the things that were said to her, the way she was treated by the police even, and the neighbors would kind of put suspect on her. I mean, it's horrendous. And what's happened is she's turned that around, and she is a haven for other people.
Oh.
And I learn from these people the level of their pain and anguish that I can't even begin to describe. I mean, when I was a child, some of my little friends were killed, so I know what happened with parents then. But when these people who know nothing get up and say things like the healing has begun, it hasn't.
No.
Oh. And the reason I love the Compassionate Friends so much is that they're all on an equal footing. Even though their experiences are different, nevertheless, they know what that anguish is when people say, give it a couple of years, you'll get over it. And I say to people too, when you go to them, don't say to them, I'm really sorry, so give me a call if you need something. They're not going to call you. You call them and say, look, I'm here for a couple of hours. Do you want to go for a cup of tea? Or do you want to show me your photographs or whatever? Because the one thing I've learned about parents whose children have died is they say, nobody listens. Nobody listens.
We are also uncomfortable. We don't know what to say. We're afraid we'll say something wrong. We make it all about us, don't we?
Sure. And a friend of mine wrote and said, well, I think this is a great idea. Did you write a part of it that says what to say?
Mm.
And I said, yeah, nothing. Could be something like, would you like a hug?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Would you bring up the short poem that you mentioned to John in your interview? Because I think that says it all right there.
By Angela Miller. Yes. It's my child died. I don't want any advice. I would like you to gently close your mouth, open your heart, and walk with me until I see color again.
That took my breath away.
I read that to Wendy, and I said, does this say it? And she said, absolutely. It says it all.
That took my breath away, that people are walking through life in black and white.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the expectation with work is horrendous. Like after 3 weeks, 2 weeks, we're supposed to go back to work like nothing happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredibly sad. And I find that people are so in denial. It's pathetic. This is a reality. Unfortunately, people are being murdered all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Victim services in Montgomery County in Pennsylvania are just astonishing. The work that they do with rape, with abuse, with homicide. Amazing.
Yeah. You remind me of something that happened a number of years ago. I have a niece who's only 6 years younger than me, so we're much more like sisters. And she had heard that a childhood friend had lost 2 little girls in a car crash. They both died in this car crash. And she goes, I really want to go to the funeral home, but I really don't want to go. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And I don't know where this came from inside of me, because I can't tell you I was practicing this, but I said, this isn't about you. Just show up. And she did. And she told me that she was in line, the line to walk past and pay your condolences. And she was still back a ways. And this woman spotted her. And she broke away, and she came over and just put her arms around her and cried on her shoulder. And she goes, I didn't have to say anything. I just had to hold her and let her cry. And I remembered that. That was such a lesson for me. I don't know why I said it to her because, like I say, I wasn't really great at doing that either. But once maybe she needed to go do that for me so I could then be reminded. I don't have to be clever. I don't have to say the right thing.
Mm-mm.
Just have to be present.
Absolutely.
And so I just thank you for reminding me of that. Well, we've gone all around on all kinds of things here, but it all has to do with how you got to this place, because you took all of this trauma, this grief, this fear. I mean, I can't imagine what that was like. And I think I also read in the story we did about you that at least the first time that you were put on a bus and evacuated, your mother didn't tell you why or where you were going or how long you would be away.
Didn't say goodbye, nothing. No.
That, I mean, that's, I'm speechless over that. I can't imagine the stories you must have made up about what you had done or what had happened and, you know, what was going to happen to you.
Well, as I said, my family created the word dysfunction.
Yes. Yes.
And I come from a family of secrets, you know. I mean, I'm born out of wedlock child, which is accepted today, but not in the 30s. It wasn't. So, you know, I come from a huge family. My mother was one of 14. And so I've got cousins everywhere. And I was the secret. Nobody talked about it. And yet, as a child, I knew there was something different. I knew there was. Even though I didn't know what it was. And so, you know, I speak up for, I don't like this word, but I speak up for victims. I'd like to come up with another word, maybe abused or misunderstood or something like that. Because there's something else I'd like to read to you. Would that be okay?
Yes, please.
I work with the recovering community as well. And I'm there every Sunday morning. And before I start the meeting, I always read this to them. And it's a medicine woman's prayer, which I love. And it says, I will not rescue you, for you are not powerless. I will not fix you because you are not broken. I will not heal you, for I see in you your wholeness. I will walk with you through the darkness as you remember your light. And I feel that about all my patients or whoever. That's what I see. I'm not trying to repair anybody that's broken. They're just injured. And a man I admire very much, his name is Joe Weldon. He's a therapist. And I remember seeing him one day and saying to me, no, I'm absolutely fed up with all these issues that I have from my childhood. And he said to me, Yvonne, you don't have issues. You have injuries. And I sat bolt upright. And I went back on that next Sunday and I went to my veterans and I said, you don't have issues, you have injuries. And of course I gave him credit because I always do that. And they too sat up for it because people have been told over the years, oh, you have issues, you better deal with your issues. But when you're injured, you look to be healed.
Yes.
What a difference a word.
Oh, it's such a difference. Yes. And when you're injured, it also, you know, that it may take time for you to heal.
Yeah.
Where if you just have issues, just get your issues fixed. Why don't you?
Right.
You know?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very,
Oh, I wish you had been around in the 30s when I was in therapy, because I think I might have gotten to some places a little bit quicker. But what a gift you bring just with that whole concept that you're not there to heal them. You're there to show them the light that they are. You're there to have it. You're there to be a friend who listens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm in recovery myself. I don't have any anonymity. I have 51 years.
Wow.
Recovery. And so I can really identify with those struggles, which is just astonishing because I'm working, when I work with the recovering community in this particular rehab, I'm working with 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, you can't ever relate to anybody 60 years younger than you. Well, guess what? I can.
Yeah. That's another thing that we have in common in a way. I'm not in a recovery program. I made a very conscious decision, you can tell I'm not in a recovery program 25, 28 years ago, to just stop drinking because I didn't think I had a healthy relationship. But I have been involved and worked with the recovery community for about 30 years. I've been on, helping an organization in Baltimore that supplies women housing and all kinds of other things to recover. So that's another piece of your story that I really love and relate to. And maybe I could have you do a Zoom call with that group someday. That would be really wonderful if you would do that. Yeah.
I would indeed.
It's called the Light of Truth Center.
Oh,
So
like that.
yeah, it's a lovely place. And I've been volunteering with them for about 18 years, just that one organization.
Wonderful.
So before we
You've got the gifts yourself, Ginny.
What was that?
You have your own gifts.
Thank you. Thank you.
They're very, very evident.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That means a lot. So you talked briefly about your podcast, and I've talked about you and John Pavlovich, but tell everybody how they can see your podcast, where they can go to hear it.
Well, the easiest one is to go on my website because they're all listed, and it's very simple. It's YvonneKayeWisdom.com, and they're all listed. So all they have to do is hit the button.
Okay.
I mean, it has a code and everything, but that's easier.
That's what I did. It was very simple, very easy. Do you also do any writing? Do you have writing other than the 3 books? Are your books still in print, by the way?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But you can get used copies, of course. No, I've really been trying to write my life story for years, and I just can't seem to find the words to put it into where it says, yes, that's really was what it was like. So I don't know. I'm thinking of writing a book about John because I refer to him as my unexpected gift. And friends have told me I need to do that. But, I prefer to speak.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's kind of, for me anyway, more valid. I remember there's a school district not far from here called Upper Perkiomen. And the children there, the 6th graders, were studying the Holocaust. You know, that thing that never happened, the Holocaust?
Oh, yeah.
I got that British sarcasm, sorry.
I get sarcasm. Yeah.
Yep. So apparently they said to their teachers, what happened to children in other countries? So my friend who's a counselor there asked me, would I come in and talk with these children? So I did. I had 4 6th grade classes, and they were incredible, these children, 11 and 12 years old. And we talked about what it was like. And then, because I'm a Harry Potter maniac.
Are you?
Yes. So I happened to have Hermione's wand with me. And I said to them, before I got the wand out, I said, what modern literature do you think I relate to? And they all said Harry Potter.
Wow.
And I said, why is that? Well, you were treated very badly. Your parents were not there, and so on. Anyway, so I gave them the wand and I said, I want you to pass it to one another and silently speak a wish for yourself. Well, I had letters from those children. I've still got them. It wasn't, dear Dr. Kaye, thank you for coming here. It was things like, when I went to the cafeteria today, I only took as much as I could eat. Because I told them about rationing, 1 egg a week, 1 ounce of butter a week, so on. And all kinds of, and there was one little boy, he said, I came from Hungary and I know what you're talking about. So they were amazing. In fact, Ginny, they were far more receptive than adults were.
Those are the same children that so-called politicians are trying to protect from knowing history, right?
Children know.
Children know.
I mean,
and they weren't shamed by it. They weren't shamed by if they happen to have German ancestors or whatever. It's just well, that's another topic for a other time. But you just reinforce that they're ready.
What
was that?
They don't judge children.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, we learned that later. We learned that later.
Oh, yes.
So before I sign off, do you have one final thought that you'd like to share? It could be a repeat of something you said, but what wisdom do you want to share with people who are struggling to get from there to here?
There's many, many things. One thing's really comes and hits me in the face was the sponsor I had 51 years ago. And I remember complaining and moaning, and everybody's fault, but not mine. And she went like that. When you're pointing a finger at someone, three fingers are pointing back at you.
That's a good one. Yeah.
There's only one thing where there's a person who's Russian that I despise, but there's only one thing I really hate, and that's gossip. So think of that poem that I read and be kind. Kind. You don't have to know all the answers. When I was not as I am today, and I would say, oh, yes, I know that. I didn't know that. Now, today, if somebody asks me, I'll say, I don't know it. I mean, I'll look it up and see if I can find it for you, but I don't know it. So be kind and learn and grow. My life, I'm a perpetual student. I'll never, ever graduate because I learn from people. And I'm amazed. And one of the things that makes me shudder is when people say, I love everybody. And I think, oh, don't do that. Because we have to get rid of toxic people. A toxic person to me is if I start talking about John and they look at the curtains or change the subject. They're gone.
John is your husband. I want to make sure everybody knows who John is. And he passed like 7 years ago, I think you said.
In June, it would be 7.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many things, but basically it's just be kind. Stop assuming things. Yeah. Be who you are. Learn to love yourself. And George Bernard Shaw said, if you can do it, it's not bragging. So learn to love who you are. You're wonderful. What a great host you are.
Well, thank you. Boy, coming from someone with your experience, I'd take that and wear it. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing yourself, and that's capital S, with our viewers today. And as I mentioned to you early before we got on, you're such an inspiration to me, and you encourage me to continue to do the work that I'm passionate about, no matter my age, just as long as I feel like doing it. I've had people say to me, how are you going to do that? As long as I want to.
Yes. Good answer.
There could be a day when I change something I'm doing, but I'll never change this core piece of me that has to do something,
Absolutely.
And so I appreciate that so much from you. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
And thank all of you for joining us for the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and global community Facebook page. If you love this interview and you want to share it with your friends, it will be on our YouTube channel in the next 48 hours. So go on over to the On Purpose Woman global community on YouTube, subscribe, and sign up for notifications. There are close to 100 inspiring, informative, and fun shows for you to watch on our channel. We only have one more interview between now and when the next magazine comes out in May, and that is on Thursday, April 14th. I'll talk with Christy Sullivan on how to use self-care to align your energy. So thank you again for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show.